People conflate something. They conflate happiness and satisfaction. So a lot of people think, okay, I'll be happy when I get there, when I get the relationship, when I get the body, when I get the jet, when I get the amount of money. They'll delay it. The problem is when you get there, you take you with you.
There are so many people in the world, especially young men, who have this idea that as soon as they achieve the level, even 100th of the level of success that you have, that they're
Yeah.
somehow going to be
Yeah.
happy. Now we have someone on the podcast, 5 private planes,
Yeah.
God knows how many millions of dollars.
Right.
Take us behind the veil. What happens in terms of happiness? How does happiness actually happen?
Well, happiness is different than fulfillment to me. So, I'd be lying. Look, all of you bought a new pair of shoes or a new outfit and it made you happy, right? The question is, how long does that last? Happiness is fleeting sometimes. Fulfillment is permanent. And so I'm not going to tell you that buying a private plane didn't make me happy for a while. It did. Look, it's better than flying coach. I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm going to tell you straight up. Okay. But I've been happy rich and I've been happy poor. I'll take happy rich. Having said that, it doesn't last. And this notion that you're going to delay giving yourself the gift of bliss until a particular destination. People conflate something. They conflate happiness and satisfaction. So a lot of people think, okay, I'll be happy when I get there, when I get the relationship, when I get the body, when I get the jet, when I get the amount of money. They'll delay it. The problem is when you get there, you take you with you. The same emotional home. That's why I have one more emotion in the book. You take you there. Here, I'm going to tell you straight up. You will get to that mansion and you're living there with you. My dad used to tell me that. He goes, don't forget this, man. You get to that big house, you got to live with the dude when you get there. You. So if you could start to love you and like you now, you'll be a lot better. Go get the mansion. I just said, go get the mansion. My dad didn't want a man. You could give my dad a mansion. He wouldn't take it. But my dad would say, when you get there, man, you're going to bring you with you. So always knew that. The other thing is then the achievers have this other mindset. They go, well, if I enjoy this right now, if I have fun, if I allow myself to be happy, I'm going to lose all my drive. I'm going to lose my drive and ambition. You're not getting it. You can be blissfully dissatisfied, meaning you can live in bliss and still have dissatisfaction and want to achieve more. They're not the same thing. So I've always, I think for the most part, been a very blissful, happy person who still lives with some dissatisfaction about what I could give, what I could contribute, what I could do. That dissatisfaction is healthy. That dissatisfaction says I'm capable of more. It's pulling me in a better direction. But I'm not going to wait till I get there to have bliss. I'm giving myself bliss now. You don't lose your drive. I like to eat great food, right? Trust me. And so you bite into a great steak. The minute you bite into that steak, you don't lose your desire to have another bite. If you're vegan, you bite into the best ever salad you've ever had in your life. You don't go, great bite. I don't want any more. Actually, the enjoyment of it makes you want more of it. So to the extent that you can enjoy yourself and give yourself bliss now, that dopamine hits telling your brain, let's do this again. Let's have some more. So happiness is required for the actual things you think you want to get. And so that's why it's so important in the book that I have the one more emotion chapter, because I want you to take an inventory of the emotions you want. It's not the jet you want. It's how you think it'll make you feel. It's not the relationship you want. It's how you think it'll make you feel. So what if you could learn to have those feelings and emotions now and not make it conditional on stuff? And here's what you're going to find, ironically. If you can get to the place that I teach in the book where you experience those emotions now, you are far more likely to actually get the stuff. You'll actually get more stuff if you can give yourself the bliss and the peace and the clarity. I have a chapter, as you know, called equanimity. Having equanimity with a calmness under duress. If you can experience those things now, the achievement part becomes almost secondary and easy to do. It's when you live in conflict and stress and anxiety and frustration and fear and depression and lack that it makes getting the stuff so much harder to get. That's the irony.
How does one develop this self-awareness of that relationship between how they feel and fulfillment itself?
I would take an inventory. I'd ask you right now, the last week or so, isn't it kind of like the previous week for the most part, emotionally, regardless of the conditions? Like, what do you experience mainly in your life? Do you experience bliss, ecstasy, peace on a regular basis? Or do you experience frustration, fear, angst, worry, down? For me, I'll share something pretty transparent. And I said this a little bit earlier, but I'll elaborate. I love chaos, and I love it because I grew up in it. And so my emotional home is chaos. And no matter, I said this earlier, but I got to be clear with you. I mean, I really developed chaos in my life. No matter how successful I became financially, I'm like, I got to mess it up again so we can do more. I want chaos. I knew it didn't serve me, but it was familiar. Our mind always moves towards what it's most familiar with. Familiarity is everything in life. And most of these emotions you have were installed in you when you were defenseless as a child. Your emotional home you learned from your parents who raised you, or what they said to you when you were defenseless. And so be a good boy, be quiet, settle down, behave yourself, whatever it might be. And these are emotions that we experience. I need approval. I need them to agree with me. I don't want to misstep. And life, all of a sudden we're an adult and our experience begins to confirm this belief we have. And then it's who we are. Joe Dispenza says that this personality we've developed alters our personal reality. And so if we can change those two things, all of a sudden our personality changes, our personal reality changes. And so it's taking an inventory of, what do I really want to feel? And what do I feel? And for me, then when I'm doing it, I'm aware. And I go, I'm doing the chaos thing again. I'm doing that worry thing again. And when you have an awareness over an emotion or a thought, for the most part, it loses its power over you. Awareness makes something lose its power. So it's just being aware of self, aware of who you are. Emotions aren't good or bad necessarily. They just are, like fear. That's a terrible emotion. Really? Little bit of fear is probably good, right? Because it helps us focus. We were given fear in the caveman days to stay alive, so we didn't get eaten by T-Rex, right? So these emotions in some doses are all fine. It's a matter of how much of it and how often do we want to have it. For me, I'm very clear. I want more peace. And peace already exists within me. I don't have to go get it somewhere else. Happiness exists in me. Bliss exists in me. I don't need to look outside of me to get it. I need to give myself the gift of experiencing what I already have. I already have it. I learned chaos. I learned fear. I learned insecurity. I was born with peace and bliss. And so were all of you. You had it as a child. You had it because you were closer to God, because you were there more recently. And you had it because you hadn't learned the other emotions until people installed that software in you.
You talked about the importance of surrounding yourself with the kinds of people who, because if you're afraid of taking a leap of faith, but you're hanging out with 5 people who all have taken multiple leaps of faith, that's going to rub off on you.
Big time. Here's the deal. Proximity is power. So I seek these. So I have a trilogy in the book of how to change your identity. I won't go into the first 2 because I've covered them. Whatever your faith is, your intentions, which we've covered, and then association. If I'm a 75 degreer of my life in bliss, right? Happiness. But I start hanging around people who live in the bliss state of 150 degrees, and I intentionally surround myself in their proximity. Through proximity, they will heat me up somewhere closer to their temperature setting. It's kind of like fitness. If you're not in great shape and all 3 people you hang around are fitness professionals, which is an exaggerated example, you're going to eat with them, you're going to the gym with them, you're thinking with them, you're reading with, you can't help but change. So in fact, this is really, really true. You've already experienced it in your life. If you look at the people you're around right now, to some extent, emotionally, financially, whatever it is, you're within 20% of them, aren't you? And so if you can begin to alter those associations, your life changes. It's hard for people because they go, yeah, but I love these people. You don't have to drop everyone, but maybe you need to add some people, intentionally add them. I don't drop that many people. I only drop people that I think are antagonistic towards me. Like they really don't want the best for me. Now I may reduce proximity and frequency to some people in my life, but I'd much rather just add better ones than drop human beings. And for me, as I've added better ones, I found I start heating up the ones that I think live at a lower level than me. And level meaning just temperature setting. Humans aren't one better than the other, because I have friends that I'm around them simply because of their happiness level, but they're not wealthy. I have other ones that are my financial friends, right? I'm around them because they think at a wealth level that I want to think like and vibrate like and decide like and embody. And so there's different, I call them like your board of directors almost in your life. And it's the most important thing you can do is take an inventory of, I know y'all hear this, but most people never change it. They're around the same people they were 5 years ago.
So I want to just highlight an excuse that I think some people may use who are listening to this, because it's a kind of a 2-way street, right? Like if I'm in shape and someone who's not in shape wants to spend more time with me so that they can increase their temperature, their thermostat, how could that person who's not in shape bring value to that dynamic so that it makes the people who are in shape want to spend quality, meaningful time around this person?
Reciprocity. Why do I have people around me, right? Reciprocity, meaning there's something else you bring to the table other than that they want. So I'm thinking of a pretty good example. I'll give you a good example. I am in pretty good shape, right? And one of my really, really good friends, who's a well-known person actually, is not. But he's an incredible man of faith. And so what I bring him in the association is, hey, man, this is what we're going to eat for dinner tonight. He always teases me. I drink, but I don't drink a lot. And he's heavy. He's always telling me, he goes, I watch you, man. You never finish a drink. I don't. I go, once in a while I do. He goes, nah, man, you like sip that drink. I've had 3. You've had like half of one. And then you order another one when the other one's still half full, just so everyone thinks you had another drink. I go, I didn't know I did that. He goes, yeah, I watch it. And all of a sudden I've watched him over time. We were at an event last weekend and I'm like, hey, you got 2 half drinks in front of you. And he goes, I do, don't I? So I'm changing him fitness-wise. Why am I around him? This dude's a stud in his faith. This dude has been married for 40 years, unbelievable in his faith. And what he brings me is a love for God and a way of living life that's at a level higher than mine. And little decisions he makes, like when he's on the road, he gets room service. I said, why do you get room service? Jeff Foxworthy just said this to me on my show a few weeks ago. He goes, I know me. You know, I've never cheated on my wife, but I ain't put myself in any situations where I might. He goes, I could be in a bar with hot women. I'm not doing nothing. I have 1 drink. I'm fine. He goes, I have 3 drinks. I don't know. I ain't put myself in that situation. I go, that's a good move, man. And little stuff like that. So he's giving me that. I'm giving him the fitness thing. And sometimes it's nothing other than what I said earlier. This person loves me. They care about me. They believe in me. You'd be surprised how many people would like to be in your proximity if you just believed in them. You just deeply believed. I got a friend of mine, you know, Daryl Strawberry is, right? His manager and mentor is one of my favorite dudes on the planet. I won't go. He messages me almost every single day. They're the odd couple. They're the odd couple. Daryl is, you know, 6'5", 6'4", African-American, just a stud, one of the greatest athletes of all time. And his manager is a little short guy from New York. I love him, but I'll protect his identity. Not in the best shape in the world. And the most beautiful, kind, God-fearing, brilliant man you will ever meet in your life. And you meet them, they're an odd couple, but they're not, because they believe in each other. And one brings the other something completely different. And they are so close because there's a reciprocal relationship there that's just unsaid. But what's really underneath it all is they believe in each other very deeply. And that's what makes that relationship work. And it makes any relationship work.
So you work with a lot of athletes still. You work with a lot of really high power people. Talk about the difference, and you mentioned this in the book too, but talk about the difference in goals and standards when it comes to separating sort of the elite from the fray. What's different about goals and standards?
You don't always get your goals, do you? You don't ever always get your goals. You can write down 10 goals. You might get 3 or 4. You might get none. You might get 7. I know that's my experience. You will always get your standards. And so the people that perform at a high level consistently have higher standards. They set a standard that's much higher. You will always get your standards. Like my goal of, I weighed 225 pounds or 221 a few months ago. I just set this goal up to go weigh 180. I wasn't in bad shape. I just want to transform my body, because I think there's a correlation between, if you can physically transform, you can transform anything in your life. It's extreme transformation. I'm not even sure it's healthy, but I'm doing it. I'm down to like 190 right now. And, but the point that I'm making when I do it is that for me, that transformation, that outcome is a standard. In other words, I may not get to the goal of 180, but I have a standard of how I train, of how I eat, of who I am. And ultimately in life, you're always going to get your standard. You're not always going to get the goal. And so these people just set a different standard for themselves. They're a little bit more meticulous. Let's look at you. I think you're the perfect example of this. I have probably done 3,000 interviews in my life. Okay. Why is your show so successful? And I mean this sincerely. It is very obvious. The first is your standard for preparation. And you just need to acknowledge and hear me on this. And I know you know this about you. Your standard for preparation is ballistic. It is ballistic. And so you might have a goal of having the #1 podcast, but you have a standard that is so far beyond the preparation of other people that it's just a matter of time that goal becomes true. The second thing is your ability to be present and listen. It's just incredible how you do it. It's a standard of yours. And so I think people who listen to your show every single week are seeing a standard that's absolutely incredible. You weren't the most well-known dude when you started this thing, right? You can't get the top person on the show, but all of a sudden the standard's set. That standard spreads over time. Then the word spreads. And then you're like, even we were, I was going to be coming on your show, I got a billion requests, right? My team's like, this is a great show. This is a great show because of your standard. And so you're always going to get that. You're not always going to get your goals. And I tell, as you know, I go through details in the book of how to set standards.
Thank you for that. I received that. And you're absolutely right. That was a very intentional decision that I made. I'm going to be the most prepared interviewer that anyone has ever spoken to. Yep. So
it's true. You are. And I admire it because I have a show and I try to do that as well. And I know what it's like when it's not there. And eventually that standard is going to come home to roost. You know that. Eventually, look, you want to be successful at stuff, get great at it. And eventually greatness rises, period. Get great. No excuses. Get great. Eventually greatness goes where it's supposed to go.
And that's what Dabo was talking about in your interview with him. He was saying how you never know who's watching you. And if you're the person who's delivering the coffee, you need to deliver the best coffee in the best way ever so that people, feel appreciated.
Can I give you a real example? I just want to continue to acknowledge you. We've been talking, I'm not exaggerating. There's always the conversation you're having, you're present. Then there's the other one that's always going on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the whole time we're talking about who I want to refer to have on your show. Because I know what it's like when you have a show. You want that, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sitting there going, man, I would refer anybody because they're going to have an interview experience. I'm not just saying this because it's so different. I mean, this is my 4th interview of the day. I've had some really good interviews, not even close to the level of preparation. And then what's it do with me? Watch what happens. It makes me want to give you my A game. And so standards are infectious. They transcend organizations. Most things in life are not taught. They're caught. They're caught as a parent, as a leader, as a friend. They're caught. It's not you just sit down and go, this is what you should do. People watch you and they catch it. I'd like to think most of the things my kids have gotten from me, I didn't sit down and go, let me tell you how to, right? It's they caught it. They watched their dad do it consistently. It's a standard.
Speaking of that, you also talk about intentionally making your life inconvenient. What do you mean by that? And how is that different from problems?
Well, I think inconvenience drives innovation. I think that people avoid inconvenience, which is a really sad thing because I think you're just unbelievable how you research the book. But I think that I chase inconvenience. Most of the great things I want to do for myself in my life and for other people are inconvenient. And most people want to do the convenient thing. I want to do mental toughness is about doing difficult things, about doing hard things and getting good at doing hard things. And then over time, you begin to enjoy, listen, working out every day is inconvenient. It hurts. It's painful. I don't want to get up and do it. Most of you don't, and most of you do it. So you have the ability to do inconvenient things when you believe it serves you. But what if I told you almost all inconvenient things serve you? And if you would begin to pursue the inconvenient, you'd be surprised at how your life would change. And so actually, oftentimes when I'm looking at doing something, I'm like, how convenient is this? And if it's a really, really convenient thing, it's probably not a high level thing for me to be doing. I love inconvenience. I don't mean inconvenience like I want to bother another person. I mean that I'm willing to inconvenience myself to produce a result for myself and other people that I believe is worthy of it. And so that's why it's such a powerful thing. Don't avoid it, pursue it.
And again, case in point, I'm 2 weeks behind in my book that was due on April the 1st. And so it would have been very easy to justify shortcutting my preparation for this interview. But I just, again, having been on so many interviews, so many podcasts, I know the value of having someone who is well prepared asking you questions. It just makes for such a better experience for everybody that I was willing to inconvenience myself and put in the time and put in the work and read the book and do all the things. And and now you're talking about referring me to everyone else. And that's like a real interesting real-time result of inconveniencing yourself in just real world ways that everyone's doing right now. Whatever you're doing in your life right now, if you go the extra mile and you make that a habit, which is something you talk about, you make that not just an isolated act, but a lifestyle. That's just what you do. And then that becomes what you're known for.
Perfect word is lifestyle. That's the perfect word for it. And when you're looking at your day, the book is called The Power of One More, because when you look at your day, there's typically one more thing you could do, and it's the inconvenient thing. And if you start to build the habit of going, the convenient thing or the inconvenient thing, what do 99.9% of human beings do? They choose the convenient one, the path of least resistance. I'm saying choose the path of most resistance more often than not. And you will see that the resistance is much less than you think, because what comes from it, the magnification, I call it the multiplier effect, is huge in your life for doing the inconvenient thing.
Yeah. My friend Coot Blackson, I don't know if you know him. He's in the spiritual community, but he's a marathon runner. He posted something years and years ago when he ran his first LA marathon. He said, I didn't run the marathon in 26 miles. I ran it in 1 mile 26 times.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And every mile, just one more mile.
One more mile.
Just one more mile.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. That's so good. I had this guy on my show, the Iron Cowboy. You should have him on.
Yeah, of course.
He did 100 ultra marathons in 100 days.
100 days, yeah.
And then I interviewed him and I said, what were you listening to when you were doing your 100 days? He goes, oh, I listened to your podcast. I couldn't believe it, because that's one.
Wow.
But here's what's great. I said, what did you do the day after the 100? He goes, I did one more. I said, wait a minute, say that again. He goes, I actually did one more ultra marathon the next day. He did one more after doing 100. Is that not crazy?
I love that.
Crazy.
So how are you thinking about success these days in contrast to how you were thinking about it in your younger days?
Success is your terms. It's your terms. I have a sister who's a immensely successful woman, and you'll never hear of her unless I talk about her. My sister is a middle school teacher at a Christian school, and my sister's blind. She was born with diabetes and lost her vision later in life. She can see a little bit, but she's legally blind. She can't drive. She needs help grading papers. But every single day, that little precious sister, Andrea of mine, gets up early before the sun's up, and she gets dressed and goes down and serves children. And she's been doing it for decades. She's right where she's supposed to be. She's using her gifts in the service of other people. She's a nurturer. She's a teacher. She's patient. She's kind. She's also really short. She's like 4'10". And so people are like, who's more successful? Ed Mylett, the rich guy, or Andrea? She was Mylett. She's now Ward. We're both successful because we're using our gifts in the service of other people. I can honestly tell you she's better at what she does than I am at what I do, but she's successful. So success to me is that, here's what it is. The results of your life equal your blueprint for it. You have a blueprint and a vision for your life. You operate out of your imagination and your vision, and the life you produce reflects it. Lack of success is you have a vision and a dream for your life, and the blueprint that you end up creating isn't reality. My sister had a blueprint. She wanted to be a school teacher. She wanted to serve children. She wanted to make a difference. She's living that vision. That's success. So whatever your vision is, if you end up living it, you're successful. In fact, I think if you're pursuing it, you're successful. The journey towards it, it's getting clear and having the courage and the vision to take the steps towards it. I believe you're successful.
Yeah, you gave this wonderful example. I think it was in a podcast interview where you talked about being in the gym one day and you saw this woman in a wheelchair and you went up to her. And what did you say?
Well, my recollection is, because this has happened more than once, but my recollection is I told her how much that she inspired me and how beautiful she was. And it was really important. I don't think I said this part of it on the podcast, but she was thinking of leaving. I watched this woman, she's in a wheelchair and she's working out, and she really was working out. And I watched her try to climb out of her chair onto some, and I just had to walk over. I just said, I just want you to know I've been coming to the gym for so many years. I don't think anyone's ever inspired me more than you. You're beautiful. You're absolutely incredible. She got all filled up in the eyes and told me that I needed to hear that. I sometimes don't want to come in here because I'm embarrassed and I don't look like everybody else and I'm in people's way. And, you know, it's amazing to me how few people are seen, you know, and are acknowledged, and just letting someone know, hey, I see you. You know, I love you. I care about you. I believe in you. I think you're awesome. I actually did this with her too. I said, I showed her, I said, can I show you the one thing on your bicep? She goes, yeah. I go, make sure you tuck your elbow in, because if you let your elbow flare out, you'll end up hurting your elbow. You know how I know? I did it. And then finally someone told me, so I wanted her to make her, and she's like, oh, thank you. And like a week later, I could see her at the gym, and she's pointing at her elbow. She's doing these little 5-pound dumbbells in her wheelchair, and she's showing me. She just felt good, And so, that's what I think the whole experience of being a human is about, and it's so counterculture right now. If I worry about something, it's the way that we treat one another. And it's why shows like yours are so important, because it's this hour and 20 minutes of something different than what you'll get everywhere else in the world. I'd like to think my show's that way too. My book is like, wow, this is different than what I keep seeing on TV or what my social media is feeding me every day. This is beautiful, and we need more of it. That's why you're so important.
Were you able to get Max, your son, out on the golf course with you and your dad to kind of pass the baton, that dynamic, that relationship?
We did play, thank God. Yeah, we got the chance to play several times together. And my son actually is a good golfer, as you know. He plays college golf. He's the one who ended up being a good player. But I did, and some of my favorite memories were being out there with my dad and my son. And for all of you that have or don't have children, that will have children someday, if I could go back again, I would have spent more time being present with my family. Everyone say, hey, what do you know about success? And there's lessons I also learned about what not to do. And I was younger, I was not present enough where I was. You know what I'm saying? Like if I was in a business meeting, I was thinking about work. If I was at work, I was thinking about, the gym. And if I was at the gym, I was worried I should have been with my family. When I was with my family, I was focused on a meeting I should have done. So I regret that. And as I got older, I finally became present, and presence is where all the beauty is. And so, yeah, we played golf, and I was present for those rounds. I remember them very vividly. When my kids were young, my wife will often say, do you remember when Bella? Do you remember when Max? And I don't remember. I don't remember because I wasn't really there, even though I was there. And for any of you that have young children or are going to have children, take my advice on what not to do from me. And just be where your feet are. Wherever your feet are, be present in those moments.
You started putting your phone down when your wife wants to talk to you now. So that's an improvement.
I put my phone down when I come home. So I'm so tempted by my phone. When I get into the garage, I leave my phone in the car the first 30 minutes. Usually it's an hour now, so that I can't even look at it when I come home. Daddy is fully present when he gets home. And my wife drives her nuts, like she'll be talking, are you hearing me? And I finally said, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to put this phone down. So I leave it in the car.
And you don't look at it for 30 minutes after you wake up.
I do
famously.
not. Hardest thing in life for me was that when I wake up, not roll over and grab that phone full of problems and texts and emails. And so the first 30 minutes when I wake up, I do not touch that phone, no matter how tempting it is. I do not do it. I go meditate, I stretch, I do what I need to do. I hydrate, I go through my visualizations, and then I'll get to that thing. Cause I'm not going to react through my entire day. I'm going to dictate the terms. I'm not going to respond and react. And if you start by responding and reacting, that sets the context for your whole day.
So obviously we want people to pick up a copy of the book, or 2 or 5 or 10 of The Power of One More.
Yeah.
If they read the book and they're enrolled in the Ed Mylett philosophy and universe, where should they go next?
Thank you for asking. I would go to, probably social media, Instagram, Ed Mylett, EDMYLETT. Also, my podcast is, does very well. I have, every week it's either me or top performer on some topic. And so
I noticed you started it in 2016, but you didn't get consistent until January of 2018. Was there something that happened there that made you say, I'm just going to do this every week? Or did you get a team in place?
I got a team in place. Yeah, I got a team in place. I finally made it a priority. I made it a priority because I took an inventory before that year and said, what do I enjoy doing the most of all my businesses? I enjoy doing the podcast the most. Well, why don't I do it regularly? Because I don't have a team. And so I got a team. My team was me and my son. My son was the editor for years, my 16-year-old son. And so then I got a team in place, and now it's, now I have a deal with Sirius XM and Stitcher. They've, done a deal with me. And so I love doing it. And by the way, even if I didn't love doing it, I have that deal, so I have to do it. But I can't wait to do my show every single week. I'm sometimes thinking I might go to 2 shows a week. I don't know. But right now I do 1 a week, and they're pretty special when they come out.
Talk a little bit about your childhood. I know you grew up you're born in Boston, but then you were I guess reared in Diamond Bar, California. So So talk a little bit about the type of family you come from and the dynamic in the household. There is a story about an alcoholic father and all that. So obviously, that added to the dynamic. What was that like for you growing up?
Yeah, great question. It's really where the book comes from too. The Power of One More comes from my dad. All the entire
Yeah.
book's written about my dad and lessons I learned there that I've applied in my own business life. But my upbringing it's a really interesting question because it's always, I'm conflicted when I say it. I come from a very loving family, lower middle class, not super poor. Like I got a present on Christmas, but not rich like we would even take a vacation. So financially, I'd say lower middle class most of the time. Probably by the time I left there, they were middle class, meaning I went away to school. I have a loving family, but a dysfunctional family, like
Mhm.
most people. And dysfunction can be all kinds of different things. Dysfunction can be drug or alcohol use, divorce, financial problems, abuse. They didn't tell you they loved you enough, didn't hug you enough. One insidious form of dysfunction I've found is parents who don't chase their dreams. That's a form of child neglect, is a parent
Mm.
not living their full destiny, not pursuing their dream, not pursuing their destiny. Because you install that software in your kid that, not chasing something, not going for it, not living your best is acceptable. But in my case, it was alcohol and drug use with my dad. And so I would say there was chaos in my childhood for the first 15 years. Then my dad got sober. But those first 15 years I grew up, I was never really a little boy, to be really honest with you. Probably had 3 little sisters and a mom. And, by the time I was 5, brother, when my dad would come through the front door, I use this ability to this day. I don't have that many skills in business, but the couple I do have, I ironically came because of my dad's drinking. And one of them is I can read people very well and be present with them. Because when he would come through that front door, I had to figure out which dad it was.
And you could tell by the way he put the key in the lock, which was fascinating.
Yeah, I could tell at first it was how he was dressed and how he moved and how he talked. And if it was drunk dad, I had to get my sisters upstairs, tell my mom to go take a shower and, hide them. If it was sober dad, we'd go play basketball in the backyard and everything was cool. Then it actually evolved, you're exactly right, to the point where I could hear the key in the lock. And if it struggled to get in there, I knew Mimi, Andrea, Erica, get upstairs. And if it went smoothly in the lock, he probably hadn't been drinking. And then I had to learn to communicate. How do you talk him out of this state? And it's ironic, like, all this business time later, you go, what are you pretty good at? I don't really know. I'm good at being present with people and I'm good at talking. But I grew up chaos. And that's an important thing because we have an emotional home, right? I write about this in the book. We all have these 3 or 4 emotions we get on a regular basis, even if they don't serve us. You can get peace, joy, ecstasy, tranquility, or you can get worry, anger, depression, frustration, chaos. It depends. You get your series of emotions. You'll find a way to get them. And for me, no matter how much money I made in my life, even how much happiness I had, I kept creating chaos because I was comfortable in it. And I'm even good in it. I thrive in it because I'm used to it. But finally, maybe not that long ago either, brother, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I went, do I want to keep having chaos all the time? Like stress? And I kept getting it because I was familiar with it. And so I grew up very familiar with that. And even as an adult, I realized some things never changed. And then finally, I made some decisions that changed. And I write about how to do that in the book.
So what inspired you to seek out baseball? And also, did your dad have any dreams that he had given up on?
Yeah. My dad was an okay athlete. I don't think my dad had a bunch of dreams he had given up on. In all truth, man, I didn't come from a family that talked about dreams. We were in my family. The type of human being you were is what mattered. End of story. And family was what mattered. Nothing else. I mean, this. I've owned all these jets and whatnot in my life. My dad and mom have never even been on one of my planes. They don't care. It's not a priority in my family. And that's really a beautiful thing because those things really don't matter at the end of the day. It's who you are spiritually, who you are as a person. But baseball came along, thank God, because I had no self-esteem as a little boy. You have an alcoholic dad. I was small. I'm shy already. I didn't think very highly of myself.
Eddie Spaghetti, they
Eddie
called
Spaghetti.
you.
I got teased at school. Eddie Spaghetti, your meatballs are ready. And they would tease me, and I couldn't win a fight. And got in a fight with this dude Ray when I was little. And your research is bananas, by the way. Just the fact that you know that. But baseball gave me confidence. It was something I was good at. It was something I could flourish at. I felt home. It was the only place I ever got recognition. In fact, it's how I got love from my dad. A lot of people in life, this is when we grow up, we begin to conflate significance or recognition or acknowledgement or attention with love. Because as a child, oftentimes, the only time we felt love is when we achieved, when we got an A, when we hit a home run, when we performed somehow, then we felt love. And so we think that's love. But love isn't contingent. Love shouldn't be conditional on your achievements. And so it's really where I felt love, frankly, even though it probably wasn't real. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I don't have to hit home runs or make millions of dollars to feel loved and to feel happiness. But it took me a long time to figure that out. But that's what baseball did give me, was a place I had confidence, a place like I felt at home, like I'm pretty good at this. Finally, something I'm good at.
A large part of your messaging today is around following through on promises you make to yourself, and even going a step further, going the extra mile and making that a habit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, because of what you wrote about your dad and that, and his sort of detached ways when you were a kid, and he had tried to go sober several times. So by the time your mother gave him that ultimatum when you were 15, which I guess was the beginning of his pivot in his life, talk about how that influenced your work ethic and your ability to follow through.
Well, the big thing that it's done for me is that I believe human beings can change. I watched my dad live one way for the first 15 years of my life, and then I watched him live a completely different way the last 35 years of my life. So I know humans can change. My hero did it right in front of me. And so I believe in the human ability to change themselves. And no matter what your background is, bankruptcy, failure, you've done things you're ashamed of, you can set those bags down and change yourself. And my dad did it. I have a chapter in the book called One More Try, as you know. And my dad tried to get sober many times, but finally one more try happened. This theme of one more kept coming up because that one decision for my dad to get sober changed our family tree forever. And I believe the premise of the book and my belief system in my life, what changed in these instances was, I think you're a lot closer to your dreams than you think. And I think the fact that you think they're far away keeps you that far away from them because you pace yourself. But I think you're one decision, one relationship, one meeting, one thought, one podcast, one breakthrough away from a completely different life. And I know this because it's happened in my own life. I've watched it in the lives of people I coach. I've watched it with my dad. And my dad also, another really unique thing was when my dad got sober, I said, "Daddy, are you going to never drink again the rest of your life?" And profoundly, my father said to me, "I don't know. I know I'm not going to drink for one more day." And I've used that, man. There have been so many times I wanted to quit a relationship or a business I was in. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to quit for one more day. Let's see how I feel tomorrow. And over time, you'll find out some of these, there's this great quote in Think and Grow Rich where he says, can you survive the temporary? Because on the other side of temporary pain is another self. If you can get through the temporary, you get introduced to this other self of you, this other version of you. Here I am now 50 years old. I've been introduced to many different other selves of me getting through temporary pain. So many people think everything's permanent. They make permanent decisions in a temporary situation, temporary pain. So what I've really learned from my dad was everything is temporary, even our bodies. My dad passed away. That's why I wrote the book. Even our bodies are temporary. And that's not a sad thing. It's a beautiful thing to know that the only thing that's eternal is our soul. The only thing that's permanent is our souls. And so all these problems and issues we have in our lives, they're temporary. And on the other side of them is another self for you. And I watched my dad become this other self. I've watched me become another self. You've experienced in your life. We're just talking about your background. Like there's another self that you've been introduced to as you've gone through these different times in your life. And if we can have that perspective, we can make better decisions.
One thing I'd like you to talk about is, I know you put it in your book, but just for the listeners,
yeah.
What made this time different for your dad when you were 15? Why did he stick to it that time? And it also relates to when you had that conversation with your doctor when he ran that heart exam on you, and he really gave you an interesting talk that I've never heard any doctor give anybody before.
Okay, I've done 3,000 interviews in my life. I've never met someone that has done better research than you. I mean, these are not very well-known stories. So the couple of them are in the book, but that last one's not. My mother said to my dad, "Hey, listen, this is it. You're going to lose your family." And so I asked my dad, "What's going to be different this time, Daddy?" And he goes, "Well, your mother's told me that I'm going to lose my family." And so it became the greater of the two. It became that he had to choose the lesser of the two pains. And sometimes in life, there's two mechanisms that get us to make decisions. One is to avoid pain, and the other is to gain pleasure. Oftentimes, pain avoidance is a powerful mechanism. Pain is okay. And so my dad, the idea of losing his children, he said to me, he goes, "You and your sisters deserve a dad you can be proud of. And your mother deserves a husband she can respect and admire, and that's worthy of her. And so I'm going to give this one more try." And so that's what changed my dad. And in my case, see, I think every great decision is made out of love. I just believe love's the most powerful driver and emotion in the world. And for me, the doctor part you're talking about, I had an uncle that died, my dad's brother, who I look a lot like, died at 50 of a heart attack. And so I ended up going to see a heart doctor just to get it checked, thinking I was healthy. I was already, physically, I thought in good shape. And anyway, the doctor comes back, you do a scan, and then you go take a break. And then you do, I literally went and ate a burrito during the break. And I come back into this guy got influence though. He got leverage. He understood the pain part of making change. So what do most doctors do? They'll just walk and go, okay, here, we found this, this, and this, take this medication, goodbye. And you may or may not do it. This guy wanted to ingrain in me deeply, this is it. This is it for you, man. And so he walks into the lobby. There's two of us in the lobby, like looks around. He's playing me, but I didn't know it at the time. He goes, I'm looking for Edward Mylett. And I'm like, it's Edward Mylett. That's me, Ed Mylett, which he knew, but I didn't know at the time. And he looks down at the chart. And this is in the lobby. And he goes, wow, I can't believe these arteries are in that young of a body. And I went, what? Huh?
He got your full attention.
Yeah, and he goes, follow me in here, son. Now I'm focused. Fear is healthy. We sit down and he goes, I just want to be very clear with you. He goes, let me ask you a question. You happily married? I said, yeah, I married my high school sweetheart. He goes, I heard she's kind of cute. I go, she's hot. And he goes, you got a kid? I said, I got a son. I got a daughter on the way. And he says, you want to go to your daughter's wedding? I said, what did you say? He goes, do you want to be there at your daughter's wedding? And I said, the F is in that scan, dude. And he goes, I want you to listen to me very carefully, young man. If you keep going down the road you're going, some other man's walking your daughter down the aisle on her wedding day. Dude, my heart, even right now, right? He said some other things, but I fast forwarded the important thing to me. And I said, I'll do what you tell me. He goes, if you do what I tell you to do, you'll be the man walking her down the aisle. There's a lot of things you can say to a dad. You go to his daughter on a wedding day, I'll do anything. And so this is the truth. A lot of mornings, and you know this because I've said it, but a lot of mornings, 2 mornings ago is a good example of this. I got up tired, not feeling very well. I could have flaked on my workout. And you know what happens to me? Bella's wedding. Bella's wedding. Bella's wedding. And here I am, 50 years old, almost 51. I'm in pretty good shape. And I can tell you the reason is that conversation with that doctor that day. I don't miss workouts. When I'm putting something in my mouth that's probably not very healthy, and I do it from time to time, I calibrate. Does it get me further away from Bella's wedding? Because there's not going to be another man walk my daughter down the aisle on that wedding day. I'm going to be the guy there. And I've been working on that for 18 years since she's just turned 18. And hopefully the wedding's still really, really far away. But that's been the driving mechanism in my life, is to be there for my daughter's wedding.
Beautiful. And now I want the listeners just to get a sense of your wife, who you met when you were 5 years old, Christiana, that's her name?
Yes.
So talk about what happened a couple months after you got married. How did that whole thing? Because you were doing well. You making $150,000 a year. You had a couple houses.
Yeah, I went broke. And so, and the reason, let me tell you why I went broke. I write about this in the book quite a bit. My identity wasn't of a wealthy man. Your identity is the thermostat setting of your life. It's really your worth. It's the thoughts, concepts, and beliefs you hold to be most true about yourself. What started to happen is my results started to exceed what I believed I was worth. And I turned the air conditioner on and cooled myself right back down to who I thought I was. And we do this in every area of our life. We do it in love. We have a 75-degree love identity, and we start meeting our dream person. You ever see that? And then a year later, you broke up and you're back alone. Or you have a 75-degree fitness identity. You lose the 20 pounds. A year later, it seems coincidental. It's a fluke. And you've gained the weight back. You will always get your thermostat setting. So the key thing in life is to turn that identity thermostat higher and higher. And I talk extensively, as you know, in the book about how to do that. Pretty heavy, actually. And what happened was I went broke. And I lost my house. My wife's car got repossessed. And I lost the power in our house, which is all bad. But if you've ever experienced this one, we had the water turned off. And even talking about it now is hard for me. I mean, and I talked about it a lot. I haven't done it in a while. But we would have to get up in our apartment complex and climb down the stairs in the morning and go to the pool. And there's an outdoor shower there. And I'd hold a towel up where my new bride would take her shower so no one could see her outside, brush her teeth. Then we would switch and she'd hold the towel up and I'd shower and brush my teeth. And then we would walk back. And whenever we would walk back, I was so ashamed, completely emasculated. I felt like a fraud. Here I am selling the dream every day in my business life and living a nightmare. And it was one of the most difficult times in my entire life. I was very humbling, very humiliating, but it makes me grateful for what I have now. And I tell people often, it doesn't happen every morning, but I would say nowadays it happens maybe twice a week, where I live at the ocean. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean, the waves crashing. When I leave here, I go to my island in Maine. I live on my own island. I look at the Atlantic Ocean. It's pretty cool. And I'm very grateful for that, but not as grateful as some mornings when I turn the water faucet on in the shower and the water hits my face. And I literally have this flood of gratitude because of those moments back in the apartment. And I literally just say, thank you, God. Thank you so much. I'm more grateful for the water coming out of the shower than I am the ocean I look at when I wake up. And the reason for that is those moments. And so thank God that I'm still grateful. And sometimes our greatest pain will give us our greatest gratitude later. And I can tell you that is very true for me.
Speaking of gratitude and your wife, she called you out when you had felt all emasculated. And then you had another buddy of yours that called you out at a restaurant. God, can you talk a little bit about
how in the world do you do this? It blows my mind. Yeah, my wife, who knew me, she knew the confident college guy me. She knew, my background, and the truth is, I was down and I was getting up later and I was laying around the house and I was, not being the guy I was capable of becoming. And she finally sat me down. She was working, by the way. She was supporting us. She had the job. People see me now, they're like, Mr. Superman. Not so much, not at all. And she basically called me out and said, hey, listen, this is it. You need to cut it out. This is not who you are. You were born to do something great with your life. You're not being the man that I grew up with. You're not the man that I know. You need to get your crap together, because I'm getting up early and going to work every day. And every time I come home, you're sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and not getting our life together. And so she called me out. And about the same time, another buddy of mine I work with is like, we had just done a sales meeting. And he's like, who the heck was that guy? And I go, what do you mean? It was me. And he goes, bro, you seem so desperate, so unconfident. I mean, bro, you're the one who always says certainty is influence, right? The most certain person influences. You seem the least certain. It was pathetic. You got to wake up, man. You're better than this. And it was just, I was so in this pattern of self-loathing and down on myself and repeating this story. I was telling myself this story of, I had it going, I had it, and I blew it, and I had it. And I was manifesting this story over and over again, because we really are the story we tell ourselves. And then finally, this buddy of mine, who doesn't even know nothing about nothing, I go, bro, I'm just so down on myself. Then this just sucks, this situation I'm in. I'm broke. I owe everybody money. And he goes to me, and he didn't even know what he was talking about. He goes, what would you need to believe about this so that it would actually serve you? We're driving. I go, I don't know. He goes, well, no. What would you need to believe about this so that it could actually serve you? I'm like thinking about it. I'm actually kind of pissed at him for calling me out, but I grew up with him, so he's the best man at my wedding. I go, well, be a hell of a comeback story. One inspiring thing to tell people someday. I swear to you. I said, man, would that be a heck of a story? I had no water. Now I'm a multimillionaire. Man, my wife's calling me out. My best friend's calling me out. Now I'm successful. And here we are now, many, many years later, and exactly what I said is happening. So I had to flip. It wasn't it's not the conditions of our life. It's not even the events of our life. It's the meaning we take away from the event, which creates the emotion, which then generates the behavior. So it's never the event. You and I, for example, could roll up on a car accident, terrible situation, and a family's going to die. And we run up and the family's passing away. You and I would say, this is tragic. Mother Teresa would roll up to that same car accident, same exact event, take a totally different meaning from it. She would tell you when she was alive, this is the honor of my lifetime, to be present with a human being as their soul goes to heaven. Totally different meaning, completely different emotion, completely different behavior, same event. So it is true that it is not the events of our lives that define us. That's why in some cases, you can take two children raised by an alcoholic father, and one goes down a spiral of repeating the entire debacle, and the other one becomes a mega achiever or happier person. Same event, different meaning, different emotion, different behavior.
And do you remember what your idea of success was back in those days when you were having those conversations with your wife and your friend?
Yeah, I think it was more shallow. I think candidly when I was younger, because we didn't have things, but I lived near people who did. So I lived in a neighborhood like down in the hill, like in the bottom of a hill, and all the rich people lived up on this hill, right? And then me and my wife would come down, ironically, to the very beach that I live on right now. And we would walk on the beach. I'd see these people own these beach houses, and I'd go, babe, someday I'm going to get us one of those oceanfront houses. And I had no idea. And I used to go, who do you think these people are? They must be like Martians or something, like who lives on the ocean, right? So my original dreams were financial, and that's okay. That's okay. And I found out that, what I found out, by the way, about rich families or happy families, that at some point in their lineage, way, 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 way back, they weren't. They weren't happy or they weren't successful financially. And then the power of one shows up. In the book, the second chapter is called The Matrix. I teach you about your reticular activating system. As you know, I go very deep on programming your RAS, the prefrontal cortex of your brain, to find the things you want. But I use Neo in The Matrix as an example because what is Neo in the Matrix called? The one. And in every family, eventually the one shows up. The one who changes their total trajectory. It could be their emotional trajectory, their viewpoint on the world, their wealth, their abundance, their spirituality. But in every family, eventually the one shows up. In my family, I'm the one. I'm the one. I didn't get it just because I wanted it. I fought for it. I battled for it. I wanted it badly. What I didn't know was that what I was really changing wasn't our financial status, because that's great. But I have changed the way my family thinks. I've changed our viewpoint on life. I've changed how much we want to help other people. We actually do dream as a family. As you know in the book, and then I'll come up for air, I say there's two types of people in life. Those that operate out of their history and their history and their memory. They just keep repeating their history and their memory, and they operate out of it all the time. Then there's happy and successful people. They operate out of their imagination and their vision. When we're children, the reason we're happier, I honestly believe, is our imaginations are flourishing. And as we get older and we get into the world and we sort of get put in our box, and, our imagination gets suppressed. Our dreams get suppressed. And dreams and imagination are a little bit different. And our vision gets suppressed. And we just start to operate out of history, out of memory. And every day's like the other one. And by the way, even when the external conditions change, the internal emotions are still the same history, the same memory. And so we change the external, but inside we still feel the same sadness, the same anxiety, the same worry, the same frustration, the same depression. So, but if you can begin to imagine a different emotion, dream about the different emotions, and instead of just getting intentional about your goals, what if you started to get intentional about the emotions you want to experience in your life? Because all the goals you have, you only want them because you think they'll make you feel something. Why not shortcut it and get consistent and congruent about what you want to feel? What you'll find is if you can feel those things, you'll actually get the goals faster.
What's interesting about your story in particular is, I think we live in this society today where people want to know what the habit, what your morning habit, Oh, Ed jumps into cold water. I need to jump into cold water and then I'll be successful. Or Ed, does this or that and I'll be successful if I do what he did. What they oftentimes miss is that actually, if you really look deeply at the story, Ed found his mindset in the unlikeliest of places, in this McKinley home for disadvantaged boys. Yep. And that's where everything came together, because you realized that your dad, your alcoholic father, had been inadvertently preparing you to not only have the impact that you had with those boys, but also to see life differently, to shift away from that shallow understanding of success to something completely different. So just talk a little bit about that transformation.
This may be my favorite interview ever. I'm not kidding. So again, everything happens for us and not to us. I think every thought leader says this now, but I can prove it to you. So my dad's first AA meeting, again, my dad's drinking, my dad's first AA meeting, he comes back, goes, I got you a job. And I'm at home, flunked out of baseball, graduated from college. I'm living in the same bedroom I grew up in, same teddy bear on the bed, same poster on the wall, eating out of his fridge. I said, okay, well, what's the job? He goes, dude, you don't get to decide. You're eating out of my fridge. Get your butt down there tomorrow and take this job. I go, you really don't know what it is? He goes, I have no idea what it is. And I show up there and it's an orphanage. Hundreds of boys. I was in cottage 8. My boys were 8 to 10 years old. I am completely unqualified. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have children of my own. I'm flunked out of college. I don't even feel good about myself. And I walk into cottage 8 at 6:30 in the morning. And immediately when I walk in, all these boys turn and look at me, all these precious little boys. My boys, their parents were dead, incarcerated, or had actually molested them. Mm-hmm. And these little boys looked at me with these eyes. And I recognize those eyes because I have them. Any child that grew up with any dysfunction, we have different eyes. And our eyes they say something very specific. and I want you to all hear me on this. Those eyes were telling me, and I didn't know I had it because I wasn't prepared. Love me, care about me. Here's a big one. Believe in me, please, and show me how to live better. Love, care, believe, and show me how to live better. And it altered my life because I'd take them to school. I was there on Halloween when we trick-or-treated. I was there when they'd open their one present on Christmas. I was there when the girl didn't go out with them at a dance. And it changed my life because I fell in love with helping other people. All of a sudden, it wasn't about this ego old baseball player about, oh, I'm this. It was, oh my gosh, this isn't shallow. Like, I was born to help people. This is my calling. Now, I don't know if it's always going to be with children, but it's my calling. And it's while I worked there that I started my business career. And I entered business very differently than almost anybody that I knew, because this was so deeply in my heart now from being with my boys all day long. I'd be with them from 6 a.m. to sometimes, 2 days in a row. And then I'd leave and go work in my business and come back. And when I found about every adult I've ever met, people say, how do you coach these people that run countries or entertainers or athletes? I'm blessed to coach some of the most successful people on the planet privately. Because here's the deal. Those boys aren't unique. Every human, the most successful person you can think of wants someone to truly love them, care about them, believe in them, and just show them how to do something better. And if you can get intentional about believing that and serving people that way, you'll be better at a parent, you'll be a better friend, you'll be a better business person, you'll be a better human. And that's why I love doing my show. We're both talking about, we both love doing our shows. I love people. You put me in an Uber, I can tell you right now, here's first thing I say, tell me your story. I want to hear their story. And by the time I get out of that car, if it's 10 minutes or 50 minutes, they're going to go, this guy loves me, man. He cares about me. He believes me. Yesterday, I get into an Uber. I got to tell you this, because humans are the gift. You have to open them. Humans are a gift. Open them. I get in this Uber yesterday, like I always do. My wife always laughs. Here we go. And I said, hey, tell me your story. This man was from Lebanon. He's driving an Uber. You would easily judge him. His car was not nice. It was a little bit dirty in the back. He wasn't dressed meticulously. And he starts to talk to me about his journey to this country. Turns out, fast forward, this man has a daughter at Harvard, a son at Yale, and another son at Stanford. And he drives an Uber to help supplement for their tuition in addition to their college loans. And I thought, what a magnificent man. This is a great man to have raised. I said, tell me about your wife. You must have a remarkable wife for the two of you to. And he tells me that he's so proud of his wife and loves his wife so much. And I learned a lot about Lebanon and whatnot. And you know what? It was just a little dose for 20 minutes of, hey, man, I love you. I care about you. I really do. Man, do I believe in you. I want to know the magic sauce of raising kids that go to those kind of schools, man. That's impressive. And you know what? Let me give you something. Here's my podcast. It might help you live a little bit better. And I gave him my podcast. So that's how I try to live my life.
Where did you learn that? I mean, I feel like I've been that way as well. And then when I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, then I had language around it and I could be much more intentional about it. Did you have a mentor or some book that you came across that kind of gave you the keys to that?
Well, blueprint? I learned it at McKinley. I felt it when I was at McKinley, when I was with my boys. And then the first time one of my salespeople in business got up and talked, and he has since passed away, but he was much older than me. I was like 25 and he was like 65. And he got up and he won this award. And he said, I just want to thank my mentor. 65-year-old man with a 25-year-old mentor. And he goes, you might think, what does a 25-year-old man have to give me? Because this is what we all think. What do I have to give? What do I have? And he said to me, got very emotional. And he goes, that young man over there is the first man in my life to really believe in me. He really believes in me. And he was a religious person. And he said, he sees Jesus in me. He sees my gifts. He sees what I'm great at. He loves me. And you know what? I've learned a lot about him, how to do this business better. And I went, wait a minute. That's what I was doing with Raul at McKinley. It's the same thing. This works with every human being in the world. And that sort of became my own vernacular and my own language. Now I've read a bunch of books that talk about be present with people and love people and all that other stuff. But really, I learned it in those moments when I started at McKinley, and I learned it in business. And I have found in my life that the way that people know that you care about them, how do I get people to find their giftedness? Every single human's walking around with 2 or 3 beautiful gifts that are just special to them. It could be their beauty, their intellect, their humor, their problem solving, their kindness, their patience, right? Their resiliency, their intellect, whatever it might be. And if you tell somebody, hey, you know, I love you so much, you know, I believe in you so much, this, and this, and it's something they already know to be true about themselves, and then you link it to them doing something great, you're going to be on a list of less than 1 to 3 people in their entire life who have ever touched them like that. And so for me, what I love when I meet, what I wasn't doing with the Uber guy was listening for the story, although I was listening for his gifts. And then to be able to say, I know why your children are so successful. It's because you love them so deeply and you're such a kind man and you're willing to do anything for your family, anything, even drive an Uber after you worked a full day. And he just lit up and he went, I do love my family. Very emotional. I would do anything for my children. And I said, I think your wife would too. And he goes, oh, even more than me. I think today he's remembering that conversation because it was real and it's really true. And I started to think, am I that kind of father? Would I do what he's willing to do? Would I have overcome what he's willing to overcome? Man. So I just think when you have a real love for people and you go, I want to open this gift up. And when I open the gift, I'm going to try to uncover what their gifts are and then just tell them. Just tell them. You will see humans light up and all the noise of the world, all the stress, all the conflict, all the this, that, left, right, south, north, you know, all for you to have those kind of exchanges with human beings is the most beautiful thing you could possibly do. And yeah, you know what, by the way, if you're in business, you could probably make a fortune doing it, but that ought to not be your reason for doing it. It ought to not be your intention. Your intention ought to be to just make a difference in someone else's life. And man, will you begin to light up. You want to have your confidence go through the roof? Walk around life like that. Link your confidence. You know, I say this in the book, to your intentions. Not people keep linking their confidence to their abilities or their achievements. Well, you're going to chase that forever. What if your confidence came from, I'm a good man. I'm a good woman. My intent is to do good. My intent is to serve. My intent is to contribute. Man, will you light up with confidence when you know to say something true about yourself like that?
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of that from your dad too, because he didn't really care a lot about your material success.
Oh.
He would reemphasize that it's so important for you to be a good man and, you know, be there for other people and help people feel seen and heard. And I feel like he's one of your guardian angels, man.
Yeah, I can honestly tell you that in my dad's case, like I think you know this, but my dad and I golfed. We're both crappy golfers, but we love to golf. And I would say, hey, Dad, let's jump on the jet. Let's fly to Maui and play some golf. I got a business meeting over there. My dad never went on my airplane. My plane was parked. My dad could walk from my dad's house. Well, it would be a long walk, but he could get to my plane in 3 minutes in a car. My father never went on my private jet. I've had 5 of them. I don't say that to brag. I say that to you that he had 5 opportunities. Never went on it. I'm going to say, Dad, let's go to Maui and play this great golf course on the ocean. This is how beautiful and simple my family is. My dad would go, well, why would we do that? We could just go play El Prado in Chino, the Muni. I said, but Dad, it's crap. He goes, I don't care about the golf course. I get 5 hours with my son. I don't care about the golf. And this is a lesson. You want to know the power of one more? I take it from you. Then you understand how beautiful having one more chance is, one more decision. My dad died last year. I told you my favorite thing's to golf. What do you think I would do right now? What I would give for one more round of golf with I can't even say it.
You had me crying in your book reading that part. I was like choking up.
Yeah, I haven't not said that out loud since I wrote it. It's the first show I've said that on.
And he died in October 2020. So I'm not even sure if you could even be in the room, you know, when all of that was happening.
Yeah, I was with him when it happened. But do you know what I would give for one more round of golf with my dad? Just to see him. Hey, Dad, good putt. Yeah, I was pretty good, wasn't it, Eddie? You know, what would you give if you've lost somebody for one more conversation?
If anything.
Right. How precious are people once you start understanding when I take the one more from you? And if you have people here that you still love, what if you started to approach that time when you walk in the room? What if this was the last one? What if I only had one more conversation, one more dinner, one more, whatever it is with them? If they have passed away like my dad has, honor them with who you become with the one mores in your life. But I can tell you when you shrink it down, by the way, you're going to have one more day someday too. You're going to be my dad someday where you have one more day, one more hour, one more breath. And so the question—
Talk about what you witnessed your dad doing as a sponsor, as an AA sponsor, all the way up until the end.
Yeah, I didn't know this because my dad was in a anonymous program, But when he died, I found all these index cards with all these initials on it up in his bureau. And what they were there's hundreds of them. There were the sobriety 1 day anniversary dates of their sobriety. My dad would call all these people, hundreds of them, and say, hey, stay sober 1 more day. Happy birthday. And these were all people that my dad would help get sober. My dad would go to bars and pull people out of them. He would text message. He'd have early breakfast, late night conversations. And as he was passing away, his phone kept ringing. And my dad had lung issues, and he would breathe like that. And some breaths were 3 breaths a minute. Some were 30. His phone kept ringing. And he says, my mom's name is Debbie. And my dad's going to pass away within the hour, within a few hours. Debbie, who's calling? And he's on morphine. And my mom goes, Ed, it doesn't matter who's calling. You're not taking the call. Right? There's no Instagram going to be on this. There's no nothing. And my dad, who is it? And my mom says, it's someone named Raul. And my dad, give me the phone. My dad knew. My dad knew that Raul was probably about to go drink again. And he took the call. And my mom held the phone up to my dad's ear as my dad was passing. And my dad talked to Raul for almost 20 minutes and said the right things he said to him, Raul, just don't drink for 1 more day. 1 more day. And Raul spoke at my dad's funeral. And it was a guy who was incarcerated for 20 years. He was incarcerated for manslaughter. My dad helped all kinds of different people. And Raul said the words that I've heard many times myself, because my dad had the same name as me. He said, Ed Mylett changed my life, except it wasn't me. It was my dad. And that's because in life, we don't get anything except who we are. We don't even always get our goals. You know, I say this in the book. We always get our standards. And my dad's standard was to always help one more person. And so he did it into his last hours of his life.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way the book is laid out. One more emotion, one more, pretty much everything under the sun, and one more. And then
it's a kitchen sink book.
It ends with that story, but also you reserve your faith, the part about faith, until the end. Was that intentional? What was the thinking behind that?
Hardest chapter for me to write was faith. In fact, it probably took me longer to write that chapter than all of the other ones collectively. I think I say that in the book. And the reason is that it's an interesting topic because you don't want to be offensive with people or come across as judgmental. And I also have this thing with religion, and I don't mean this in a negative thing. I think religion is wonderful, but I also think sometimes religion can be the thing that gets in the way of you and God, oftentimes organized religion. And I do go to a church and I am a Christian, but I oftentimes, right when you say that, you alienate anybody who's not. So I wanted to say it in the fact that I respect people of all faiths, and even if you don't have any. I'm also very scientifically based. I believe in the quantum field. I believe in energy. I believe in vibration. I believe in frequency. And so I think sometimes people think, well, if you believe in this deity or God, you must be a dummy and not know about the quantum field or energy. And then all these people that believe in the quantum field think the reverse. And it's not true at all, at least in my case. I know energy exists. I know the quantum field exists because I tap into it all the time. I'm huge on vibration. You can feel my energy when I speak to you. We're always making people feel something. We just need to take control of what it is that they're feeling. But for me, I wanted to write about my faith because it wouldn't be true to me if I wrote a book that said, here's how to be more happy and successful, and I leave out the center part of my own life, which is my faith. And so I am unique in the sense that I truly do respect people of every single faith. I truly do. And I admire people of faith. I admire people who are agnostic and are wrestling with the idea of faith or not. I admire anybody who's in the contemplation of their existence. And I just think our existences are beautiful. My journey is not your journey. But for me to write a book about my life and my experience and then not share my faith, well, that wouldn't be true to me. And so I tried to do it in the most respectful, tactful way I could, yet still express what I believe for me, and not to press upon that to anybody. But wouldn't it be ridiculous for me not to express how I feel, the most important part of my life? And so I do write about it. I hope I did it in a respectful way and that people understand the intent behind it.
Yeah, I listened to one of your podcasts with Dabo Sweeney. I have no idea how you got Dabo Sweeney on a podcast, because that was awesome, man. I'm a huge college football fan.
Yeah.
And you guys talked about faith, and he kind of had the same sentiment. You said, look, if you're going to hire Dabo Sweeney as your coach, then you're going to take all of it. You can't just take the X's and O's. You have to take the belief and the foundation behind it.
Yep.
And you said something that really resonated. You said, look, I don't have to be right in this. It just, as long as it serves me and it allows me to show up in the way that I show up. And he kind of, he agreed with that as well.
Well,
for me, I thought that was very powerful.
Well, that was a great interview, by the way. One of those easy interviews. I asked 2 questions and then we were done in an hour because he can really talk.
Fantastic.
Right? He can really talk. He's incredible. Yeah, I feel like this, like it serves me. My belief systems serve me. And by the way, I will share with you that my dad's faith was different than mine. And we had wonderful conversations and debates about it. He was a little bit more what I would call spiritual, more new age a little bit. And I have elements of that as well. But my dad and I would have these debates and discussions and share ideas. And it was wonderful. I just love the discussion of faith. I'd ask my dad, because my dad was sick for 8 years. He had cancer for 8 years. Dad, what do you think happens when you pass? Where do you think you go? What do you think it's like? And his discussions over time. And then he'd ask me, what do you think? And I said, well, this is my view and how I feel about it and what I want. And, oh, wow, that's beautiful. I'll think about that. I'll pray about it, and I just love respectful, beautiful conversations amongst human beings. And it is a hard conversation because it's such a touchy thing for people, but it's such a beautiful thing. Because here's the truth. All of us have an ongoing question in our minds of, why am I here? Who am I? What's this all about? What's it mean? And I think it's healthy for different people to share their perspectives on it. And also to say, I question my own. I have a relationship with God. And what that means for me is that I always be, I know everything. You're wrong. I'm right. That's the part that puts me off. For me is I have a relationship with God. Sometimes it's better than others. I actually think questioning one's faith and contemplating it, even having doubts from time to time, is healthy because it causes you to ask better questions. It causes you to dig deeper. It causes you to pray more. It causes you to reflect more. So I'm open in saying that I'm in a constant, ever-growing relationship with God that I want to understand more of. I'm a Christian, yet I meditate every single morning. I empty my mind. I want to tap into the best frequency that I possibly can. These are not exclusive ideas to one another. They can both exist. You can believe it. In my case, that God created a beautiful quantum energy field that I have access to. And so maybe I'm a crazy person, but that's what I believe.
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.